Welcome everybody to the Lace Up Podcast, episode 5, coming at you. We're here tonight with a friend of ours, Tim. I'm gonna defer to my co-host here.
What's up, guys? Devin here. I got one of my best friends here do the podcast tonight. Tim, thanks for coming, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah. So if you want to just dive in, get in your story, where you're from, growing up,
For
shit
sure.
like that.
For sure. Yeah, so what's going on, Tim? Grew up in Arlington,
Hi,
Massachusetts.
Tim.
Hey, what's
Hi,
going on?
Tim.
We run it
Hi,
like
Tim.
that. My name's Tim, and 33 years old, and grew up in Arlington, Massachusetts. And I can't even come up here and lie. Growing up, was good. You know what I mean? I had everything. Had everything I needed. Had everything I wanted. You know what I mean? My parents were together. I had an older brother. We were provided for. We went on vacations. My father worked. He had a good job. My mom stayed at home, and she raised us. And I think it's important for me to say that, because for a long time, especially coming into recovery, it was I didn't qualify to be an addict, right? Because I didn't grow up around any real traumatic stuff. No police presence at the house. No domestic violence. None of that stuff that you think of when it comes to that lifestyle. And growing up, it was good, man. You know what I mean? I played sports year round. Always looked up to my older brother. I was always following in his footsteps in the sports world, just trying to be better than him. He's 4.5 years older than me. And that's what I did for a good amount of time. Taught the right morals, taught manners. It got to a point where around 7 years old, 8 years old, you go to the doctor's office or whatever with your family, and you do your yearly physicals, and my brother's 5 years older, like I said, and I'm a lot bigger than him, so we'd be on the same growing plan, and I started to realize something was wrong, man. I wasn't fitting in with him. We weren't growing at the same rate. I was the same size as him, and it raised questions in my my mind. And I remember asking my parents why is that? And that's my first memory of thinking of hearing that I was adopted. And I think that's real important in my story, because hearing that for the first time at 7 years old, all I could wrap my head around was damn, my parents gave me up. You know what I mean? I wasn't good enough. Those core beliefs of of low self-worth, of low self-confidence, of not being lovable, nobody wants me, I won't amount to anything. When I look back at it now, that's where those beliefs really were instilled into me. And it's funny, because before the drugs came, after I got that information, it was always behavioral issues. You know what I mean? I was always acting out in school, trying to get a rise out of people in class. I was very angry. Like I said, I played sports. I'd be 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I'd be getting double technicals thrown out of town basketball games, just flipping out on refs.
CYO, yeah, we had a youth organization. Yeah, we used to act up there.
Yeah, and it was just I was just an angry kid. I was an angry, confused, upset kid.
So were you born in Jersey, Tim? You were, right?
I was born in New Jersey. My biological family's in New Jersey, and that's where my mom still is, and my grandparents are down there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So but I grew up in Arlington my whole life. I was adopted when I was 2 weeks old. So my mom and my dad are the people in Arlington. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
And just being an angry kid, moving on with the story, it's as I got older, I was always down at the Boys and Girls Club, always playing sports there. And we got to that age of 10, 11, 12 years old. It's people started experimenting with drugs, man. And I was always that kid who would be around other people that's not good for you. You guys kind of joked around, I don't vape anymore. I don't do the nicotine thing anymore. And I was that kid at 12 years, you shouldn't do that. That stuff's not good for you. You know what I'm saying? Because
Make him hit the vape.
I ain't hitting the vape. I won't hit the vape for nothing. I won't hit the vape for I won't.
Make sure he's not fucking undercover.
Yeah. No, I won't hit the vape. I won't hit the vape.
Yo, you a cop?
No, and it's funny because the one thing that really resonated with me is one of my friends' fathers used to say to me when he found out I was smoking cigarettes in high school. He's Tim. He's this is back when cigarettes were $4.25 or whatever.
Yeah.
He's Tim. He's every time you leave the house, and someone was standing right outside your door. He's would you give him $5? And I was nah, probably not. He's well, that's what these tobacco companies are doing to you. They're robbing you every time you walk out what you're doing. And it didn't make sense to me back then. And like down the line, it like started to click as like things started to come full circle and I started to get my life together.
Where's that dude now, bro? We need him.
I know. He'll do a nicotine cessation,
Right?
but it's true,
They probably
man.
whacked him. They probably took him.
No, it's one of my good friends. It's one of my good.
All right, good. He's still around.
He's still around. He's still around, and he's one of my good friends' father. And just kind of like on that same topic, it was like for me, like when I got clean, I was like, damn, like if I'm gonna change my lifestyle and I'm gonna try to like better my life and prolong my life, and it's like obviously like I have a daughter now, and it's like just like making those like smart, responsible decisions, like in my life, like. That was like one thing that I had to change, you know what I mean? Like I go to the gym and like I try to engage in healthy activities and I don't do it perfectly. Like, and it just didn't make sense to me anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, been there, done that. Fucking, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You know, we can look at it as a, you know, a curse, but it's really a blessing, you know, in disguise, you know.
No, definitely.
Once you wave the white flag like completely,
Right.
shout that shit out if you have to. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
You know, just for yourself.
Right.
I used to say it at meetings. I'd be like, you know, alcoholic addicts. I'd be like, what do you got on me now, right? Because like that's how sick like my thinking. It's like, but I needed to say it, you know. I needed to, you know, just whatever works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to people. Yeah, it's like.
Well, that's why, like, it's, dude, for me, it's so crazy because, like, we've been at our worst together. We've been at our highest together.
Yep.
And, you know, to see where this kid's been, like, you know, and to see now that, like, he don't even fucking vape, dude. And this kid was like a, you know, and he'll tell you, but, like, certified savage, dude, when it came to, you know, using, you know what I mean? And real deal Holyfield. And as you were getting into, you're an athlete, kid.
Yeah, I'm a semi-athlete in retirement, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I want to touch on, before we get into the sports, you know, what's Ronnie say? Sports the court, you know?
Yeah, Ronnie
But, you know, I find it intriguing, you know, that you mentioned the adoption and stuff, and that, you know, 7 years old. I don't know, for myself, it's like I have snippets of like, you know, just like a flash of like a memory, but there's nothing that plays out, you know. And a lot of it, you know, a lot of it's probably trauma. A lot of it's, you know, shit that, you know, it's you would think like a nightmare or something, but obviously it was shit that affected us. And for you to be 7 years old and to acknowledge that, and then in hindsight to look back, you know, I'm sure that, you know, you didn't always know that or acknowledge it, you know, I should say, you know, not know that, but like you didn't acknowledge it until like, you know, you were ready to, you know, put in that work or whatever, like they talk about it. But I think, you know, then you talk about your daughter, I think that's amazing, you know, I believe God, you know, I think that, you know, the higher power, you know, that, you know, I grew up Catholic or whatnot, but, you know, to each his own, but something bigger than yourself, like they talk about, you know, that's, it works. And, you know, and then like, you know, I think that there's a purpose, there's a plan, and there's no coincidence, you know, and your daughter coming into your life or whatever, you know, exactly when she needed to, and you stepped up to the plate, right? So like all those feelings that you had or whatnot, you know, and you can probably look back and say, all right, well, you know, you probably wouldn't change it for the world. Like, you know, if you had to go through it again for her to be in your life and you know, what you're doing now with her, it's probably, you know, a godsend, you know?
no, for sure.
It doesn't always look like that.
Yeah,
For sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, what was it like going through high school and going through? Did you play ball?
I didn't play ball. I barely went to high school. I was supposed to be Arlington High class of 2010. I think like my grade percentage in ninth grade was like 1% or something. So I was gonna be like a second year freshman. And the second year freshman year, like I was on track to fail again, and I probably would have been graduating.
He's gonna be like Channing Tatum.
Dude, I was gonna be graduating high school, and I was like, I was gonna graduate when I was Devin's age now if I stayed on the trajectory I was going. So yeah, right. He's working on it. But like I wound up dropping out, man. So like that's one thing that I look back on. Like I was never able to play like high school sports, but like in that middle school era, like Little League, Babe Ruth era, like I was always like one of the better kids like in my town. Like I was always on like the travel teams. Like I played AAU basketball for a little bit, and like I was like if I stayed you know on the course, I would have played varsity sports.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean? For sure.
Arlington had good, you know, forget the academics, that's hands down, but you know, definitely good sports, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You ever play hockey?
No, it's the one sport I never played.
Really?
No, I played like every.
I'm sure
no,
some of
right.
your friends, you
no,
know,
Arlington's a big hockey town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they got good hockey players.
Who
so
came out of
wasn't me.
Arlington? We got Pat Connaughton, right?
Pat, yeah, I played with Pat. like Babe Ruth, Little League. He played up for us he's a year younger than me, so he played up 1 year in a couple like holidays
Is he
time
still on the
tournaments.
Milwaukee Bucks?
He's still on the Bucks. I think
Yeah.
he has like a year on his contract left
Oh,
or something
shit.
like
Kid
that.
Ed Havern.
Yeah.
You know, and I know TJ Bannister. I remember I know I'm going back or whatever, but you know, there was a lot of them. You know, I knew some of them from Matinee and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
I mean, well, it's funny you talk about too. It's like, you know, Arlington, I don't know, considered a suburb, whatever. It's
Right.
like, those kids, they were down to, you know, they like to party. You know what I mean?
Nah,
Like,
for
they like to
sure.
have fun. It was almost probably even,
Yeah.
you know, more dangerous for them, where it's like, you know, they,
Right.
yeah, and even going to house parties at their house, you know, like I remember, you know, it was definitely, yeah, they there was some money there or whatnot,
100%.
but you know, it was nice. They definitely got the, you know, they were down. We were cut from the same cloth, you know.
Right. It's funny you touch on that too, because I was thinking about that, like thinking about what we were going to talk about when we came on here. And, you know, yeah, like I grew up in Arlington, like it wasn't like that inner city projects. Like I didn't grow up like in that environment. But like you said, like Arlington is like a wealthier town, upper class, and people had money. And like when I finally started using, like I was in like the Perk 30 era. You know what I mean? I was looking back on like, you know, my high school years. By the time I was like 15, 16 years old, like I was a full-blown like perk head.
Right.
And with the knowledge I have now, it's like I had a heroin habit that was pharmaceutical heroin.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because let's just be real, like that's what it is. And it's just crazy to think about that. Like the drug, like I just like the whole high school, and I'm sure it was like that everywhere, but like in that era, like the late 2000s, like 2006 to like 2010 is the years I would have been in high school. Like the whole high school was strung out, man.
Yeah,
And I think about it too, just like, cause I was involved in the game a little bit, like nothing crazy. And it was wild, man. Like,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
went from bad to worse, you know.
No, 100%.
That's I mean, yeah, I know the OxyContin era and stuff, and you know, now you get all these the Netflix stuff, all different things.
Right.
You know, these movies that come out and expose like the Sacklers and stuff like that. And you know, I remember first learning about it from a counselor, and you know, in a program, and he broke it down to the point, you know,
Right.
he to the T, where like years later I'm seeing this movie, and like he said, like they would send out these pretty girls, whatever,
Right.
and they would go to these doctors and you know, shake them down essentially. You know what I mean? They
Right.
would, like talk about like that's like some devil shit, and like all the
100%.
money that they paid out, like it'll never
amount
you know,
to anything.
They knew what they were doing,
No,
bro.
100% they know what they were
If
doing.
you watched that show, Dope Sick, dude, I thought it was
a
real
great show.
good.
Great show.
Like,
It was a Michael
Bro.
Keaton, right?
yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Keaton does a phenomenal job, dude. And like
He got hooked.
he got hooked, and he was a doctor, bro.
Right.
They had like the you know, whatever, the sales reps for Purdue going to fucking see the doctors and like
Yep.
offering them fucking vacations and offering them fucking, you know, like fancy dinners, all that shit, which is, you know, a whole nother topic, but it's kind of crazy. It's, you know, it's almost like, you know, big pharma's kind of turned into like fucking, seems like treatment centers now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's kind of a controversial statement, but you know, it's like not everybody in the recovery field really solely cares about helping you. You know what I mean? And
No,
that's-
Well, and I think,
100%.
I mean, with that being said, yeah, I agree, but I think it's, you know, I'm sure it's always been like that, you know, and it's always going to be like that. But
Yep.
at the same time, it's like, you know, change our own perception as far as like, you know, the one thing I look at and like, you know, I think that it's like the coolest thing, you know, kids now, it's like, you know, like I get a 20-year-old or whatever, I tell him like, I can sit there and tell him and actually like believe what I'm saying, not just tell him because I think it's gonna like, you know, because a lot of times as a parent you're gonna be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have
Yeah.
to know everything.
Right,
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like with and you know, because they'll run with things, you know, especially if it serves their purpose or whatnot. But just to be able to tell them like, you know, listen, like being, you know, doing the right thing is cool. Obviously, that's you know, I learned that later in life. But like, it's like it's certainly, you know, not worth the consequences of like you know, just acting up or whatnot, or just like living like that. But you know, when it has you or whatever, like especially like the disease of addiction or whatever, and now it's like you said, like it's actually cool, it's trendy, like it's and that's why I think Boston, you know, like we've always been on the map anyway, but like to, you know, they have conventions that come in and whatever, like everyone, this is the place to be. It's like, yeah, we may have been known for this or that, but like no whatever we do big, right? So it's like, and now it's like, you know, let's push this fucking let's push this thing, right?
Yeah.
And like you know, that's why you know, it's great that I feel like it's easy for us to be passionate about
Yeah,
it, you know,
of course.
because
course.
it's real and it's like and but that's the thing. I feel like before now it's like it's not cool. I don't think anymore. At least I'd like to believe that.
Yeah.
It's not cool to be, you know, maybe when you guys were growing up, whatever, at some point something shifted,
Right.
you know, and it was like, you know, the kid outside Dunkin' Donuts, like with like the fresh kicks on or whatever, like fucking, you know, doing the nod, you know what I mean? And like he thinks he's fucking fresh to death, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So Timmy, how old were you when you went to your first program, first detox?
My first detox, I was 17. I went to like my first residential actual program when I was 14. It was like a behavioral modification. I had like a chins put on me like through the school, like when you're under 16 and like you're a child in need of services or whatever, like the school can like impose like a non-criminal probation on you, which is like pretty much what it was. And, you know, kind of tying into like the progression of my like addiction at the time, like my only real stipulations were like, don't get in trouble and like pass your drug tests. And like, I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? So like I got removed, you know, I got taken out of my house for like a 45-day program. And it was literally like, the crazy thing is it was in Arlington, like right up the street. A lot of the staff that worked there were like guys from the hood in Boston. And we'd be supposed to be going to the movies on Saturday night and we'd be going somewhere, they'd meet their boy and like I'd literally be smoking blunts with them. So like, and they're like, why aren't you passing your drug test? Like you're in a program. And whatever, like it wound up getting to a point like that once I was 16, like the school could no longer keep it on me and it was fine. It was eventually like up to my parents again. So like, of course, like I convinced my dad, I was like, hey, like I don't need this. Like I need to come back home. And I sold him some lie that like he bought.
If you think of it, you know, we know now that like, you know, you convince yourself first and foremost to be able to convince him. You know what I mean? So we have to believe our own fucking lives,
right? Absolutely.
I think too, I got a long time back then, like I wasn't real. I was kind of like naive to the fact of like what I was dealing with. You know, I got to that like pivotal age of like 13, 14 when I first started using. And it was at that same time, like my brother went off to college, my mom got sick, so my dad was like more concerned with taking care of my mom. Perfect storm, and I'm the young kid, and like I'm kind of losing my role model and my brother. My dad's tied up, he's working, he's taking care of my mom, who was really sick, she wound up dying from what she was, you know, from her sickness, and like it was so easy for me to like sneak through the cracks, man. So like naturally,
and we don't need, you know as well as I do, we don't need much of a reason, right? Forget about like, you know, detrimental or traumatic stuff or negative things like which like that happens in life, right? Life is gonna happen, but we can justify positive, you know, like things are going good or whatever. And it's
well, dude, he talked about, and it's funny because I know your brother David. And, you know, it's like from someone else's point of view, it's like you guys are probably two normal kids, but like that fucking feeling of like being less than, like insecurity, like we run with that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And you know, we become all we think about, you know. It's like we let that our own thought of us and like what other people think of us, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Dictate the decisions we make.
That's why,
you know?
One of my favorite sayings, you know, egomaniac with inferiority complex, like that shit,
and
like
it's true.
Hard, like resonated where it's like, you know, I love saying it, you know what I mean? Like fucking, you know, they say for someone that thinks so little of myself, I'm all I think about. And I always say like, you know, maybe in the past, like that shit, I'd hesitate or I'd be like, you know, not to sound silly or whatever. And I don't really say that anymore. And I know that there's growth there because I know that really the only people that, you know, people do understand it, right? I don't need everyone to, right? But like there are people that know exactly what that means, right? I don't have to explain. I don't have to elaborate on that. You know what I'm saying? If you know, you know.
Right.
And that speaks volumes, that statement, as far as I'm concerned.
No, for sure. And I think it's funny that you say that, like, depending on, like, for me, like, how well I'm taking care of myself. Like, if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm running off ego, like, I can have the biggest ego in the world. And it's like, if I'm not, and I'm beating myself up, and it's like the negative self-talk that, like, goes on in my brain, because I still have that, man. Like, just because I'm clean or whatever doesn't mean I don't have these negative thoughts. And it's like, the ultimate goal is to, like, stay in the middle, stay God-sized, like they say, and not get too low and not get too high, and try to like go through life like at like a good level, man. I don't want to get too big for my own head, and it's funny, like playing into, you know, as the story goes on, bits and pieces, like I met Devin, right, and I was clean, and you know, I got to a point where I was almost 2 years clean, and it was the longest I'd ever been clean. Like,
I gotta hear about this. Bro,
man, it was bad. It was bad. No, right. And it's like I got to a point where it's like, you know, I got the license back. I finally got a good job with like a good company. I'm making like decent money. I got the apartment. Like I'm finally out of the revolving door of like treatment centers that I was stuck in for years, and like. whatever. Like at the time, at the time I was single. Like all respect to my fiance, I'm happily engaged right now. But like I was at a point in my life where I was like, you know, I was running wild. I was 27 years old. I was clean for like a long term for like the first time in my life. My head got too big for myself, and I got to the point where like I was really suffering internally, like in pain, and like that pride and that ego like wouldn't let me reach out for help. You know what I'm saying? And like
that's a terrible, that's purgatory.
No, 100%, 100%. And like it was almost a death sentence, man, because like when I went out after that time, like, you know, Devin was there for some of it, and like for the next like 6 months until I finally like got myself back into treatment, it was just hell, man. That's what
they talk about, the thing, you can be sick in sobriety, right? Like that's the perfect, that tells you right there, right? If anyone that don't know whatever, but you're hip to the game, where it's like, it's so true. The alcohol and the drugs, like the substance, like any type of addiction, anything that gets you outside of yourself, if you're running on that to like not feel something, like that's a problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can get real sick, like even in sobriety.
Without drugs.
Like, without recovery, it's like, you know, that's a problem.
I want to share something real quick before I forget about it. So you was talking about, you know, we met, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
Maybe
now?
like five and a half years ago.
With Ernie, right?
With Ernie, like commitment at the Meridian House. Yeah.
We got tight after that.
Yep.
But, so he was, like you said, he was coming up on 2 years clean. I was like probably around a year and a half, something like that. This like speaks volumes to like where he was and where he's at now, right? I remember Corey Mack wanted me to go buy a house, dude. You weren't answering, dude. I heard like fucking rap music and you were like playing 2K, but you weren't really playing 2K, you know what I mean? I was going to kick his door down. He wasn't answering the door. You know what I mean? He wasn't well. And I come upstairs, dude, and you just made me think of this saying it. And bro, like for us to use is to die, right? And this kid had on his bureau, you know what I mean? He's not even, you know, he's out of it. And right on his bureau, he had a note, and it said like, give Jamma my money, give Devin my car. It was like, it was basically like a suicide note, dude. And like, that's for us to use is to die. And like, I get choked up talking about it. It's like, bro, to like think about those times and to where you're at now, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean? I haven't thought about that in a long time, bro. But that's a true story. I had the whole note written out. It was like a
sick ass meat fuck.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps.
It was like a suicide note / will, and like I didn't expect to live, man. I didn't want to live, man, because I think too, like that prior time, like for like me, you or Joe, like I've been fighting this disease for a long time, man. And like when I got clean that past time, I went into it with the attitude like, yo, I'm gonna give this to my all. And like if I don't get it, like I could say I tried my hardest. And like so when I finally wound up relapsing after having that mindset, like it was so painful to me. You know what I mean? Like I was grieving the loss of my recovery. You know what I'm saying? And it was like it's so crazy. Like
and that's the thing, because you finally like you had established and created an identity that like, you know, that the ego was like, was, you know, they say smash the ego or whatever, but like it was, you know, you started to form an identity or whatever. And then like to lose that, it's like, I think that, you know, that grieving process is real, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like that's the only like growth comes with like failing and stuff. And like,
for sure,
you know, believe me, it's like, I'm you know, I'm a baby, like when it comes to that, who wants to feel like bad, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I know it's necessary, you know what I mean? And that's what I've been taught here. But, you know, to hear you tell that story, that shit gives me chills or whatever, you know? And that's what it's all about, you know? And you said you suffered with this disease for so long, and to learn things like to be educated, right? Because like education, like there's no negatives to it. It's all positive, right? Like it's a win-win. And like to know that you were suffering before you even picked up a drink or a drug, and like it's so much deeper and bigger than that, you know? Like I mean, I'm so sick. I was getting like high off of like learning about this stuff, right? Like, you know, and I can run with that, you know? It's like, wow, like I go down a rabbit hole and like I use that, like I take like what you gave me and I'm like, wow, you just gave me like the keys to fucking, you know.
What do you say, Joe? You could go to like meetings alcoholically, right? Like,
100%.
You know what I mean?
No,
you could do anything too much, you know?
For sure.
But yeah, it's wild, and I love seeing I get inspired and motivated, and even I'm happy that you told that story, because people need to hear it, right? People need to. There's no secrets here. You know what I mean? Like that's what they say. You're only as sick as your secrets.
For sure.
Well, you know, it's like, and then little, you know, the crazy thing is when we finally like start like just fucking if it doesn't come out of fucking here, like orally or whatever, it's gonna come out of the side of my neck. It's gonna come out in all different ways. That ain't gonna be good. And I feel like we have, like you talked about, those morals, those values, those principles that were instilled in us, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we come out the other side of us sitting here tonight if that wasn't the case,
Right.
So like, shout out to like, much respect to your parents and stuff like that. And I love how you talked about, mom and dad and whatnot. And I have a couple kids, and like, I'm dad, you know what I mean?
Right,
and,
right.
that's a heavy that was a heavy title to carry, right? But
We all got daughters.
Yeah.
It's the
able
best
to
feeling
do it,
ever.
right? I'm able to do it, and like my voice is cracking even saying it. But it's a team effort, that's for sure. It takes a village, and I can't do it without fucking like hearing shit like this, and like let them, it's a good reminder, and who wouldn't want to fucking share that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, no, 100%, bro, 100%. I'm glad you shared that. All of us, like being fathers to girls. It's like, I don't know if you're a girl dad out there, dude. It's like the best feeling.
Nah, it's the best. I'm wicked glad I got a girl.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes, actually, my daughter's 18th birthday today.
Yeah,
right?
Hell yeah. Happy
H-
birthday.
Happy birthday, Juliana.
Yeah,
Happy
yeah,
birthday.
baby right there.
Dude, I'll never forget Jonathan. Remember Jonathan was at my baby shower, and he's like, what did he say? It's like, first he followed you with the neck tattoos, then he has kids. He even went up to you. He had twins or something.
Yeah, right.
Jonathan's nuts. What's it called? But fucking all right. So yeah, like you want to talk about like, I don't know, that time during the not this time, but the time during that time that we met, like I don't know what your routine was like. What helped you stay clean in that period of time, and then like what threw you off track? Or
So I mean, I think like when we met that time, like it was during COVID. I actually remember the story of how we started hanging out. So pretty
I
much
think
like
that's when I met you, Darren.
yeah, it was down at the Charlestown meeting on the bleachers
yes.
during COVID and
Defiance.
COVID Defiance. Yeah, me probably saved a lot of lives during that time.
That's a
you
great
know,
feeling too,
no,
bro.
for sure. And but Devin had I think Devin just got to like his 20th halfway house that year, and he posted on his story like he was trying to ball or something. And I slid up on his story. I was like, yo, I'll come ball. Like my time freed up. Like I had just stopped seeing this girl I was seeing at this time, so I drove and we met up, and that's how like it kind of kicked off. And
He was hustling like white men can't.
Devin's a baller. Devin's a baller. Devin's a baller.
Me and Tim go back and forth on. Dude, this kid would pick me up every week, dude. I took a fucking weekend pass, dude, and went and stayed with him in Plymouth, dude.
And we just played one-on-one.
One-on-one.
We went to
no,
you need a good
dude.
No, for sure.
It was the best, bro. We went out, we'd go out to eat, we'd fucking go doing shit, go-karting, bro.
Right.
Yeah, you're essentially reliving your youth.
Right, yeah. You're getting connected back to those things like you lose in the drug use, man. Like we touched on it earlier, sports was such a big part that like I gave away when I started getting high. So to be able to like get back to that. And like, dude, playing ball gets you high, man. Like if you're like wet and you're hitting mad threes, like that's a euphoric feeling that you get. And like with no substances in your system, like it produces like dopamine in you. You know what I'm saying? But
absolutely.
That time when I met you, when I had gotten clean, what had happened was like my whole surrender process to recovery started probably in like 2019, right? I got picked up on like a default warrant. I got caught with like half a gram coming out of Westboro detox. I got kicked up and I wound up.
Always half a gram.
Dude, it was some bullshit. It was always some bullshit, and it was out in Westboro. So I wind up like never being able to get to court, right? Because at this time I'm just like homeless, like straight, like living on the street type using, and I wind up getting picked up on that warrant like 8-9 months later, and it was like the middle of winter. I was tired, man. Like you get to that point and you run where you're tired. So whatever, I get to the holding cell in Westboro, like that morning. Or the next morning, I stayed overnight. And then the next morning, they bring me to Westboro, and I just told my lawyer, I was like, "Yo, I'll plea out to 90 days." You know what I mean? And like, I look back on it now, it's like that was like the beginning of the surrender process to me, because like I was like, "Yo, I'm done," And I
felt enough pain.
And I was tired, man. Honestly, I was tired. I was hungry. It was cold, and I had nothing going on, man. Like my only other option was to like clear this up. Go do the 90 days, or it was like, maybe they'll give me a personal, because no one was coming to bail me out, even if it was a $100 bail. You know what I mean? Leave there in Westboro, no money, and get back to like downtown and hustle up $10 to get high again. Yeah. That was my only other option. So I wind up taking the 90 days, and whatever, I do that, and I wind up getting out, and like, you know how like when you're like locked up, or like you're in a program and you're up at night and you're like thinking of all the good things you want to do when you're finally out of the situation. Like at least that's me. Like I'm gonna go to the gym, and like you're just like daydreaming of all this good stuff, man. And like one of the first things I would always do, and it's funny, it's like going back to the cigarettes thing. Like I'm gonna get out and I'm not gonna smoke cigarettes. And I'd be walking out the courthouse, and the first cigarette I see, I'm smoking. But this time my dad.
No defense.
No defense towards picking up the first anything. You know what I'm saying? So, but this time my dad.
We deserve that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But like my dad picks me up at Worcester House, and like instead of like, and because my dad was a big enabler for me too. But like instead of being like, hey Dad, I need a pack of Newports, he took me to get a cup of coffee, and I made that first step towards like trying to better my life, and I wound up staying clean for 9 months. I find myself in a situation where that I usually do, where I wind up getting like disconnected from the program, disconnected from my recovery, like running.
You're starting to see patterns.
No, 100%, and you know, getting involved in a relationship, and like relationships are tough, especially early in recovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even now, I mean, relationships take like a lot of work, a lot of like forgiveness, and you know, getting two people to like come together as one isn't always easy. You know what I mean? But it's doable.
Yeah,
it's doable.
No,
I've been.
It starts like what they said. I mean, you talked about we don't do it perfectly. It's like who the fuck does?
Right.
But like at least if I can put my head on the pillow at night, know I put forth like a solid effort or whatnot, then like that to me, like that's what I need. But you know, when I learned about like, all right, you got to take care of yourself. Like, all right, that's a learning process, right? Like, not just gonna pick it up like that,
right.
But you know, at the same time, I have all the incentive in the world to do it because like that was the lie that I told myself. That's what I didn't want to believe, like, because like, well, how do I do that, right? I had no clue how to do it. I wasn't gonna ask you, like, I wasn't gonna ask you to fucking teach me, right? Mm-hmm. Because like fucking, you know who I think I am, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then lo and behold, it's like you know, that was I needed to take care of myself, right? And you know, that's how we do it, like this, like you said, you know, that the little steps that along the way, and you talked about your dad like being there, and you know, I feel like it's easy for the addict and the alcoholic, in a sense, you know, the people around us that like, you know, we have that, you know, it's just a vicious cycle of like, you know, victimization, you know, loathing, like self-loathing, and like, of course, dude, how could, you know, at some point it's like, you hit that rock, you hit that bottom, and at that point you're like, bro, like, I surrender, right? Whether you even like mean it or not, bro.
Right.
Like, you know, and hopefully that's where it is. You know, that's where it ends. You know.
Yeah. Like, we got to go through pain to be motivated.
No,
bro.
100%.
That's the long and short of it. I mean, you know,
sure.
Nobody. I don't know. I know for me, like I've never, you know, I've never really like had any type of surrender until I was like beaten and broken. You know what I mean? And that's just how it goes for all of us. You know what I mean? And yeah, so.
Well, especially you think about I like to say this, like, you know, I'd say when I, you know, at those meetings when I announce, you know, I'd label myself, you know, like, all right, this is what I got to do, whatever, to get better, and I was willing to do that. But like, I also needed to let you know, like, all right, what he's got on me now, right? It's like, you know, you're not that fucking important. You know what I mean? Settle down, pump your brakes, you know. But yeah, to feel that, I lost my train of thought.
Angel dust disorder.
Angel dust disorder. It's all, hey, well, it's a real thing.
But no, so it's like, I feel like everybody in the recovery process deals with this too, where it's like you're first getting clean, dude, and it's like, it's easy to walk into a meeting and like a girl gives you attention, or like start smoking cigarettes, or start fucking gambling, or anything, because like, you know, it's not even the drugs and alcohol, bro. It's the way we think. It's thinking we need relief, thinking, you know, oh, I'm not okay with just who I am. Like, I need something to feel better. And it's like,
if you think of like the depths of like suffering and like despair that, like, you know, when I had to like tell myself, like, all right, you had to look at myself and hold myself accountable, be like, bro, like, you know, most of the shit, you know what I mean? If not all, you know, that was your doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, spin it however you want, but like, where's that got you? You know what I mean? Like, you're spiraling. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So like, once I had to look and be like, and take accountability, it's like that was a tough pill to swallow. But it's like,
What's Paris say? Each one teach one. You know, like
something like that.
Eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears. Each other's eyes and ears.
Yeah, eyes and ears. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're all in it together, and we all like holding each other accountable and trying to live the same ultimately, and achieve the same goal. You know what I mean? I think all of us can say, like, you know, we'd like to, you know, you know, have a family, a house, a career, you know, all these things. And, you know, I remember, like, dude, it's so crazy thinking back. Like, you'd pick me up, dude. We'd play basketball. We'd hit meetings, dude. Like, that's literally all we did was play ball, eat food, and hit meetings, dude. And, like, it was the best, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
Before we were,
was planted.
yeah, before we were, you know, before we were dads. Before we were
this
kids,
was back then, right?
Crazy times
Right.
changed,
I
man.
tell Deb when he goes to see his twins, they're 2 years old. I'm like, bro, tell them to get their own friends, bro.
Right.
It's fucking nuts.
You just said one thing too, Joe, that I like that you said. Like, you talked about, like, you know, I had to really take a look at myself and realize that, like, I was, like, 9 times out of 10 the root of my all problems. Because, like, for the longest time, like, I was a victim, man. Like, one thing, like, that I've learned in recovery is, like, I'm no longer a victim. You know what I mean? Like, one thing recovery has given me is, like, the power to be accountable, like, the power to, like, take responsibility for my recovery. And it's, like, one thing that you hear in the meetings, like, you know, it's like we're not responsible for our disease, we're responsible for our recovery. So it's like,
we need to do something about it.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
It's like,
So it's like, put the fucking bat away, you know what I mean?
Right. And it's like, once I get that knowledge that of, like, this is what I'm dealing with, this is the disease I have, like, I can no longer, like, place blame. You know what I mean? Because now I'm equipped with, like, the understanding of what I'm up against. And, like, honestly, for me, like, I found a lot of that through step work. You know what I mean? Like, I can't go and attack a problem if I don't know what the problem is. Because then I'm just going in blind. You know what I'm saying?
The steps or whatever, and people... I've heard, you know, many people, you know, say like it was a game changer for them. And, you know, everything ain't for everybody or whatever, but the fun, you know, to me it's comical and whatnot, because I'm like fucking, I should have been a psychologist. Maybe I'll go back to school for that. I don't know.
Right.
Quincy College, you know. I think the state of Mass is paying for it.
I think Bunker Hill would be
Bunker Hill College, shout out,
Yeah. He's got a great sponsor too, by the way. You know who his sponsor is? Orlando. Shout out to Orlando.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Orlando's
That's my
the best,
guy.
dude. Orlando's the best.
He's gonna have to sponsor us so we can get official fitness.
Dude, speaking of that, Golden Gloves, we should all go down. He's there every week.
Sure, yeah, he's up there right now.
Yeah.
He's up there right now. We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, but yeah, man, like all these fun things that you can do and like reinvent yourself in recovery. It's good, man. Like learning to do things that, you know, you've never done before. I mean, fucking. You know, look where it's gotten this kid, dude. You know what I mean? He's playing fucking pickleball a couple months ago, dude. That's crazy. Seriously, though.
Right.
When I talk about, like, and I say it in, like, half joking, but, like, fucking dead serious, like, when I say, like, real gangster recovery, because, like, bro, for the longest time, like, you know, it's like fucking in Goodfellas, you know, ever since I was a little kid, all I ever wanted to be was a gangster, you know what I mean? It's like fucking, you know, that's, talk about delusional, you know what I mean? Or, like, you know, living in fucking fantasy land, like in a movie or whatnot. And to me, like, it's like what I found out is like, you know, the people, you know, that are able to show up for work, you know, in the midst of like adversity and everything else of life in general, you know, and then, you know, looking to cut corners and like think you're getting over and like think you're slick and like, and needing to believe that or whatnot, and needing people around you like yes men or people that are gonna massage your balls and tell you like fucking, basically like, you know, y'all fucking just as sick as me, you know what I mean? All we're doing, like, there's no room for fucking any type of relationship, friendship, bond to be made. Because all we're doing is manipulating each other, right? Because fucking I'm fucking, I have underlying issues, you have underlying issues, but like we need to fucking be codependent and tell each other how fucking great we are. And where's that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's why it's like, it's great too, because like, I don't know, I talk to you just about every day, you know what I mean? I try to, you know, tell people where I'm at, man. Like if you're new in recovery, man, like tell people where you're at. Tell people what's going on with you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I
like
admire that about you. That's one thing. I see you pick up the phone. I see you talk. You know, and I struggle with that. Like they say, the phone's heavy.
I just pretend I'm not really on the phone.
Hey, whatever works. You know what I mean? Fucking, it sounds good. It helped me though, right? But, and it's like they say, like, you know, reach out or whatever. And like I still, it's difficult for me where like, you know, that ego, like you said, it's still. I know what it is, but like even in acknowledging it or whatever, it's still like there's still fears that like I'm you know, barriers, fears like that. Like it's like, you know, the fire's there and it's like, am I gonna fucking walk through it? Am I gonna try to stomp it out or whatever? I'm just gonna put my fucking toe there because, you know, I don't want to get burnt again. But it's like you know, sometimes I struggle with that too, where it's like I feel like, you know, subconsciously or whatever, it's like, dude, you're old enough, you should know certain things, you know what I mean? And like, but at the same time, like I have to give myself a break because it's like, why would you, bro? Like you you haven't grown, like you were stunted emotionally, mentally, psychologically from the time like you were a kid, let's say, based on fear, and then like now you add like alcohol or drugs to the mix or whatever, and and rode that way for a little, ran with that one. And now it's like next thing you know, I blink and I'm fucking 30 years old, and like it's like wait, what happened?
Well, that's the thing too. Is like I feel like we fucking play all these things out in our head, and like I know I'm sure for all of us, like the fear of success, the fear of failure, fear of fucking not fitting in, fear of all this stuff, and it's like it is something to be said for someone that goes from being homeless to having a daughter, having a full-time job, having an apartment, having a successful relationship, man. Like those are not easy things to accomplish. They're really not.
You had spoke about that. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit if you're comfortable with it.
For sure.
The homelessness, like that's something to each their own. I know for myself, it's like I can sit here and like spin it so it serves me, and like I can get something out of it, right? Because that's the self-centeredness. But homelessness, like I couldn't even fathom it. I really couldn't,
Yeah, and I think like for me, like obviously my plan was to never like wind up downtown crossing like asking for change so I could get high. That wasn't like what I aspired to be growing up. But like as my disease like progressed and I got to that point in my life, like all my bridges were burned, man. Like if you came in contact with me like at my worst, like I probably fucked you over. You know what I mean? Like people didn't want me around. Like I burned all the bridges with my family. Like I had nowhere else to go. Like my family and my dad. My relationship with my dad and my brother was like, I'll give you a ride to detox. And like, that's like where it got to, and I had nowhere else to turn. And like, you just touched on like being scared to actually like get clean and be responsible. Like that was scary to me. And I wasn't ready to take that step. And like, I still had to get high.
Responsibility, what?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point where I had nowhere else to go, but I still wanted to get high. And I just wound up on the streets, man. And like, and I look back at it now, like how crazy it was to like think of like, everything that I went through when I was homeless, like all like the insanity, just like in and out of the emergency room, like, panhandling. I remember I'd be panhandling outside of like TD Garden because that's like was one of the things I would do. I'd be there for like the Bruins or the Celtics games. I got like girls I went
to. Who needs tickets?
No, I'd be holding the door with a dirty Dunkin' Donuts. No, dead serious. I'd be sitting there with a cup, holding the door, and it's like, dude, I have friends, kids I grew up with, coaches, anybody you can imagine that I ever came in. Like, dude, like everybody in the state goes to the Celtics or the Bruins. So anybody like I knew throughout my life, like. I would see there sometimes. And
what did that feel like?
Dude, I felt so small. You know what I mean? And I just remember like having that feeling of like just like seeing people and like my heart would sink and like, but then at the same time, like I was also like so numb to like the reality of things.
Yeah, you were so, the disease had you by the throat.
100%.
Like, as much as that, the shame, like I always say, a little shame, there's not, as far as I'm concerned, a little shame. There's nothing wrong with a little shame. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think it's the worst thing, but at that point it was probably just null and void. Like it wasn't. You had no fucking choice in the matter.
No,
right.
So like, at that point, like the disease was calling the shots, and like I just like that's where it took me to, and like we mentioned it like earlier in the podcast or whatever. It was like all the shit I went through in my life, like to get me to where I'm at now, like I truly believe was like necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like
you can't see that while you're going.
Well, and while I was going through it, like I couldn't. But like hindsight's 20/20, and like everything that's led me up until this point in my life was like a setup for me to succeed. Like you know what I mean? Like that was such a humbling experience for me to like be on the streets, like unbathed, like seeing people. And it's funny, I was talking about this with my therapist a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't thought about this in a long time. I'd have a system where I'd be like in the like downtown crossing, State Street, Park Street, like they're all kind of like underground connected. So I'd be going through like asking people for money or whatever. And it was like a winter night, and I'm walking through, and like I'm half out of it. You know what I mean?
What's the most you ever got?
I got $100 bill a couple times. Yeah, 100%. I remember the $100. Yeah, 100%. I got 100 a couple times, but like, so I'm going through like, hey, sir, can you spare $1 or whatever? So like the dude turns around and with my fucking brother, bro. No word of a lie. And like, I didn't even think about this until like 3 weeks ago when I was in my therapy session. And like, man.
And people have the fucking audacity to fucking, to talk, be atheists and all this shit. Like, I always, as far as I'm concerned, I say like, bro, give that motherfucker a hug. You know what I mean? 'Cause,
Right.
like, if you don't believe in nothing, then why you telling? Why you fucking shouting it out? Why you telling anyone about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you search. I think you're looking for a little attention there, which is fine, right? We all need that love or whatever. But how could
That's
you?
crazy.
That's not like that's not God. That's not fucking.
No, 100%.
You know.
And I'd love to say like we ran off in the car to detox and I got clean, but like I didn't. I felt like shit for 10 minutes and I was right back into it. And like that brought me up to the, the homelessness like brought me up to the point again where
even for you to remember that specific time. You know what I mean? There was something registered there. You know what I mean? It's
No, it was like I saw a ghost, man. I remember I couldn't believe it, and like my brother's not an addict, but he knows about it like through me. You know what I mean? And he's like, I'll take you to 7-Eleven, and he bought me like a bag of chips and a Gatorade.
Are you guys tight? You guys?
We talk. We probably see each other like once a month, maybe twice a month, depending on the times. Like he'll come see my daughter. You know what I mean? Like obviously through all like the stuff that like I went through and like put our family through. Like we grew apart through that. But I will say like through all the times like I was locked up or in jail or in detox or like whatever it was. Like if it was something like positive and beneficial to myself, like he was there to support me. You know what I'm saying? So like
that's what you can ask for.
Right.
Tim's brother is a complete citizen, dude. Remember when we told him the vaccine story?
Oh, the vaccine. Yeah.
Tell Joe. Does Joe know?
The vaccine story?
So, dude, we're out to dinner.
We do catch right on.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, me and Tim, where were we? Legal Seafoods?
Yeah, Legal Seafoods in Assembly.
Assembly Row.
Were we stemming over there?
No, we're eating. We were clean. We were clean.
Yo, and Tim's like, yo, you should tell him, whatever, but. And then someone last week told me, like, yo, you should tell the story, right? So, I don't know. We were in a fucking sober house in Medford, dude. We got high in that sober house for like 2 weeks, bro.
100%.
Didn't get caught. That's 100%. Besides the point.
HIPAA.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're not going to use names or anything. This might be statute limitation. I might be getting myself in trouble here, but whatever.
You might just shut down a place, but that's all right.
Yeah, right.
So this fucking dude hits me up, and he's like, yo, you trying to make some money? And I'm like, yeah, fuck it, dude. What do I got to do? And fucking, I think my car, like, just shit the bed, and, like, I needed to, like, whatever. I was getting high, dude, in this sober house with Timmy, and this dude's like, yo, you trying to make a couple bucks? And I'm telling his brother the story. I did it for two different people, right? They needed to get the COVID vaccine for work, and I went in to one of them. I forget where one of the pharmacies was. One of them was Star Market in Dorchester with their ID, got the vaccine. 2 different times for like, I don't know, probably like $1,500 total for both of them. And yeah, dude, I'm surprised I'm still alive.
You got hit twice with it?
I got hit twice with the Johnson vaccine.
And that's the reason why Devin is the way he is now. By the way, that's why we're getting to the bottom of things here. There's more. We're uncovering more. We're uncovering more.
Drugs
No, he has. 100% he has. 100%.
That was like, dude, what was that? A couple of years ago.
That was like 2021
but
maybe.
We told his brother that story, dude, and he was like,
he couldn't believe it.
He was like, who are you?
Yeah, he couldn't believe it.
I was like, yeah.
He couldn't believe it. No, right. But he don't get any of that stuff.
Yeah,
he doesn't understand.
But that's the thing. Like, normal people don't get us, bro. Like, and you just made me think of something too. Like, this time around when I was getting clean, dude, I had a fucking abscess in my hand. I'm at Mass General, right? And I'm just like fucking broken, dude. My ankle's fucked up. My hand's the size of a fucking baseball glove. This kid I fucking graduated high school with and was like good friends with. We were on the football team together. Comes in, dude. He's a fucking doctor at Mass General. He's a doctor at Mass General. He makes eye contact with me. I'm like, I hope this motherfucker.
He always like
walks right over. He's like, what happened? And I'm like, I can't lie about what happened. This motherfucker's a doctor. I'm like, bro, I got a fucking abscess shooting coke. And he's like, damn, bro. He's like, you're better than that. You know what I mean? But like, yo, I'm feeling small like that, dude. But sometimes you need to feel that shit, though.
For sure.
That's especially when we're so, so stubborn and so like egotistical based on, on our fucking character defects or fears and stuff like that, insecurities.
Yeah.
So like, I know for myself, like, it's like I needed to be humbled, and like whether, I choose now to like humble myself, I prefer that because like life's going to it, like, whether it's another person, place, thing, whatever, circumstance, I'd rather like at least have control of like, how I can kind of keep myself level or whatever, and like kind of, with like a good, like a good head, like, humbleness as far as like allowing it to, to run wild and like, and it's just gonna take your legs out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll fast forward a little bit. You had your daughter, Danielle, right?
Mm-hmm.
She just turned 2. So
Just turned
and
2.
you're coming up on 3 years clean. So,
3 years.
Yeah, so
June 22nd.
Yeah, let's go. June 22nd.
Yeah.
Mark it in your calendar. Dude.
Yeah, June 22nd.
So what's this time around been like? What's been different? I know a lot's been different, but
for sure.
what was things like starting out and your routine now, and you know what I mean, shit like that.
So when I got clean this time, my fiance was probably like 2 months pregnant. I'd gone up to New Hampshire at the end of that run, at the end of COVID or whatever. I went to treatment up there. I was clean for about 5 months. Slipped up for a couple days, pulled it together, and then had another little.
Runs get shorter.
They get shorter, so I had another like 2 day little go at it, and then I checked myself into a detox, stayed there for like 2 days, and like when I was there, like I had the ultrasound picture, and I was just thinking, man, like I had a lot on the line at the time, you know what I'm saying? Like Breeda was 2 months pregnant. I had just
pressure was on.
Like we had just signed the lease on an apartment. I remember
that. Pressure breaks pipes, but it also makes diamonds.
Facts. And so like Breeda's pregnant, just signed a lease. Like, dude, I literally got high the day before we were supposed to go to the apartment, and I was still in sober
remember
living.
that.
Yeah. I think it was with you.
Yeah. I left that part out.
Yeah. So
Devin told someone. We were out to eat the other night, so he told someone that I made a joke, whatever, about he's always like, oh yeah, I was with this one or that one or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I'm like. Something about Ben and Jerry's, like, yeah, I got high with Ben and Jerry.
Right. Dude believed me. He's like, did you really?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But
so again, I had a lot on the line, man. The apartment, like Breeda's pregnant. I just gotten like allowed to go back to that job I got. I'm still with them now, and I don't know, like it was just like do or die. You know what I'm saying? Like
you stepped up to the plate.
I stepped up to the plate, man, and I'm in detox, and they're like, oh, what are you gonna do for your aftercare program? And, like they're trying to like sell me on all this shit, and like the God's honest truth is like, yo, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna go back to my apartment, like I'm gonna go to my home group, and I'm gonna get a white key tag, and like that's what I did, and like from that point until now, I've done a lot of different.
And all those things that we would fucking keep at bay, or be like, all right, I'll do this, but I won't do that, or whatnot. And these things that it's like, all right, it's like that's the blessing where it's like, bro, you know what? I'm tired of fighting. Yeah, I'd love to fucking be an individual and like all this shit, but I have no clue what I'm doing. So it's like, just fucking teach me, right? If I have to do this, right? It's like that's very humbling, but at the same time, it's
that's how, bro. That if you're doubting the program of AA, of NA, of recovery, if you're doubting it, man, like this kid, like for me, honestly, like. You know how I feel about you, bro? Like, I look up to you. Like, if you're doubting if it works, like, I know for a fact it works because I've gone high with this kid. I've been at the lowest with him, man, and, like, seeing, he's a full-time dad. He's he works full-time. He goes to meetings. He goes to therapy, dude. He doesn't fucking vape. He drives a CRV, dude. You know what I mean? That's what being a man is, dude.
No,
for real.
For sure.
That's gangster, bro.
That's gangster.
For
sure.
I mean. That's gangster, bro.
For sure.
Like I say, where it's like, listen, if you think you're gangster, bro, right? Like I say, I'm so gangster, I'll make sobriety fucking gangster. I'll make sobriety cool, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, but then I gotta fucking take the steps to do that.
No, for sure. And like on that, like, I went back and I got my white key tag and like, the suggestions you hear in meetings, you get the home group, you get the sponsor, you work the steps, like you don't get high in between the meetings that you're going to. And like, as I like continued to do that, like, the day started adding up, man. And like, thank God I had the job, and thank God like my daughter was on the way. So that was always in the back of my mind. Cause like one thing I would always think about just like being in programs and being like in those situations, like, visit day comes around. It's like, yo, my kid's mother isn't bringing my kid. And I'm like, yo, I would not want to be that guy. And like, no disrespect to anybody who was that guy or is that guy. But like, that was like motivation for me. I'm
like step your game up.
No, for sure. And it's like, but no, it's like, yo, I had an opportunity for my daughter to like never see me use. And I had an opportunity to like be there for her and like be a good example and be a good partner and be a good father. And like up until this point, like I haven't, I'm in her life every day. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like I provide for her, I work, like I provide for our family, and like my fiance does too. Like we're
Yeah.
a team. And,
Shout out to Breeder,
Shout
man.
out to Breeder. She's
Good
a real,
mother,
she's
great
a real
woman,
one.
great fiance.
Yeah, Breeder's
Yo,
a real
Breeder's
one.
the best,
Breeder's
dude.
a real
Yeah,
one.
every good man is a great woman.
I'm truly blessed that we have each other. And
Yeah, building a life second to none, bro.
Challenges you, you know, it's like,
challenges my patience. No, just kidding. I challenge hers. I challenge her.
Yeah.
I challenge hers too. But that's like, the relationship's like another thing. Like, we're locked in together. And
you guys have you have this
right.
This little girl, bro.
No,
right
for
now,
sure.
You know, the stars align.
Right.
That's right there. They talk about, building self-esteem. You get into esteemable acts. It's
right.
like, the hardest thing I've ever done, the most esteem that I've got out of it, like, what better feeling about, is to, like, start learning about yourself and taking care of yourself. And it's like, it's growing pains, right? Progress, not perfection.
Right.
It's certainly worth it, especially when, all the incentive I needed. I used to think like, bro, for the kids and whatnot, or for my family. And like, I would like to believe like loyal, fucking, all these things, loving and like caring and kind and like all these like positive attributes. And like, I really, at the end of the day, bro, like I really needed you to believe it, but I had no way to fucking really express that or like convey that, right? Because it was just empty. It was that hole was there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. Yo, Tim, what do you think the record is on us playing one-on-one?
I'm up.
You're up?
100%.
I'm up for debate. What
you just won in ping pong, bro.
Devin won.
I won.
I'm up in one-on-one.
I told him
I'm up one-on-one.
He beat me in basketball right now.
For sure.
Tim's an athlete. But
for sure.
What do you think it is? Somewhere
it's around 500, but I think it's like 60-40.
It's around 500. I'll take that.
It's all right. Keep coming.
Yo, tell him the Carol story.
Oh, no. It was just...
He was playing ping pong down Chinatown, right?
yeah, Devin was down there. I think I saw him when I was out there. Yeah. No, Carol, just some random kid that wound up.
Carol, if you're out there, dude, we miss you. We love you. Yo, we went. Where was this?
That was,
dude?
I don't know. It was like Derry
fucking
or something.
Derry, New Hampshire, dude. We picked him up. Me, Jammer, Tim.
Derry, New Hampshire. I thought that was like a fake place.
No, it's real.
On the movie It.
No. Derry's real.
Might as well be though.
Derry's a real place.
I saw a couple clowns up there.
Yeah, probably.
Yo, this dude, like, he had like the fucking goggles on,
like the sports goggles. Yeah, for sure.
And we kept playing, dude, and this kid just kept slipping and falling. He was
It was mad funny.
It was me and this kid Carol versus Tim and Jammer, dude. And like, we were recording it because like we were being competitive. And this kid just kept slipping.
Yeah,
and falling,
it was funny. It was good.
He didn't know how to lace up.
It was good. It was good. Yeah, no, he wasn't laced up.
Yo,
it's important, bro.
Yeah.
That
was funny, man.
That
was good times.
Dude. Mad funny. So, what are your predictions for the Super Bowl? We know
Philly's in. I hate to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I want Buffalo to win.
I think it's Buffalo's year, man.
I don't want to see Mahomes win again. So I guess. Yeah. Hoping for the Bills, pulling for the Celtics always.
It's crazy. You can see like us as like New England fans and being spoiled and stuff like that. Especially you guys, like this, all you knew really was winning.
Right.
And now to see like. No wonder why people hated us. You know what I mean? I remember being a kid and like, I'm a hockey guy and Detroit Red Wings. I love them. And then they started winning all the cups. And I was like, something in me, I was like, I didn't want to see them win again.
You're like, fuck these dudes.
First blood in there, but
absolutely. It's going to be interesting, man. I hope the Celtics go back to back. I think so. They stay healthy, they're good.
For sure. For
sure. You want to sign the thing, kid?
Yeah, sign it. For sure. Let me get this.
Give him the Timmy H, dude.
Let's go.
Yo, Tim, get rapped, too.
No, not today.
I'm not going to put him on the spot.
Today.
Listen,
maybe I'm
rapping.
I can follow for part 2.
On part 2, I'll rap.
Like Danny Boy says. But we'll have a battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Well, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Joe, thank you for having me. Good to see you too, man.
Absolutely. We'll link up.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Enjoy life together out there, we're living life. We're lacing
That's
up.
That's it.
Real gangster recovery, like we talk about.
Yes, sir.
And Deb, you want to take us home, brother?
Yeah, dude, it was great having you. I love you, kid.
Love you too, bro.
Let's see. Tune in to the next episode.
Peace.